Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum all. A very good morning and good afternoon or good evening to all of you wherever you are. Welcome to the College of Banking and Financial Studies, which is an apex of government higher education institution for educating, training, conducting researches in banking and financial services sector in Oman. It's a college that offers a broad range of diploma, bachelor, and master programs. It's related areas related to business administration, accounting, auditing, finance, and banking. The college also provides professional certifications and conduct customized and open training courses in banking and finance related areas. On the behalf of the College of Banking and Financial Studies, I would like to welcome you to our 10th series of Meet the Professors, an international webinar which is a part of the college research and academic virtual engagement. And the theme for the today's session is intellectual discourse dialogue with the prominent scholars. We delight that today we have two permanent speakers among us for the today's session, Dr. Heinz and Dr. Andreas. We are excited to join our respected speakers for today's journey in order to learn and explore innovative approaches in training and consultancy strategies, as well as strategies for empowering our learners. Before we begin, I would like to invite the Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs, Dr. Yusuf Al-Mabsali, to deliver a welcome address and opening remark for our today's session.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. Greeting from College of Banking and Financial Studies. Dear esteemed key speaker, Professor Heinz and Professor Andreas, esteemed delegates from across the globe, and my dear colleagues, good afternoon to you all. Welcome to our highly anticipated Meeting the Professors, the lecture discourse, dialogue with the permanent scholars event. It is an honor to have each of you here today, and as we embark on this enriching journey together. This event holds a great significance as it offers a unique platform for intellectual discourse and dialogue with some of the most prominent scholars in their respective fields. Through engaging discussions and insight exchanges, we aim to dig deeper into the theme of intellectual discourse and its significance in shaping our understanding of complex issues and challenges. In today's fast-paced world, the ability to engage in meaningful intellectual discourse is more important than ever. It allows us to explore diverse perspectives, challenge our assumptions, and broaden our horizons. By participating in this event, we have the opportunity to gain valuable insight from esteemed scholars and thought leaders, enhancing our knowledge and understanding of the process. As we engage in these through provoking discussions, I encourage each of you here to actively participate, ask questions, and share your perspective. By doing so, we can collectively enrich our understanding of this topic at hand and foster our intellectual community. At the conclusion of today's event, our expected takeaway is not only a deeper understanding of the theme of intellectual discourse, but also a renewed sense of curiosity and a commitment to lifelong learning. So we hope that the insight gained from today's discussions will serve as a means for further exploration and discovery in your academic and professional pursuits. Before we begin, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and thanking to our distinguished speakers for sharing their time, expertise, and insights with us today. I would also like to thank each of you here for joining us and contributing to what promises to be a stimulating and rewarding event. Without further delay, let us dive into the discussions and embark on this journey of intellectual exploration and discovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yusuf, for your warm welcome and inspiring remarks and encouragement. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into our excited agenda for today. Today's webinars will consist two main segments. The first segment will be engaged by our esteemed professor, Dr. Heinz, where he will share his insight on consultancy strategies, while the second segment will be by our guest, Professor Andreas, will exchange his ideas and experiences on empowering students. Each session will be followed by a QA session for you in order if you have further clarification on our today themes. And now we will start with our first session titled Consultancy Chronicles, Crafting Impactful Strategies. It is my great pleasure to introduce to our first esteemed speaker, Dr. Heinz. Dr. Heinz, Associate Professor at the Torrens University Australia, a research fellow at the Center for Organizational Changes and Ability. Heinz is a member of the Scientific and Editorial Board and has a research focus on the business management responsible for artificial intelligence and mixed methods of research. In industry, he is a COO for more than 25 years of standing in technology, media, and telecommunication, including commercial and non-profit board director roles. He has more to be said about the Dr. Heinz. Just a remark before we are going to start the session. In case you have any question to Dr. Heinz, you can engage with us by utilizing a QA box, not the chat box. Feel free to post your questions there to be discussed during the session or during the QA session. And now, without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Heinz to run the session. Dr. Heinz, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you for having me tonight to talk about how academics can get involved with consulting engagement. It is a very interesting subject, especially for students in banking, financial services, and insurance, because one of the ways to get involved in consultancy engagements is through commercialization. And we're talking about intellectual property protection as well as revenue sharing, royalties, and so forth. So it's going to be an interesting session specifically for the people in the audience today. Before, I want to talk specifically about three types of consultancy engagements and then give cases and strategies to develop those types of engagement. But I will have to talk very fast because I have only got less than 35 minutes now to get through it before we get to the question and answers. So excuse my fast pace of words and my fast pace of ideas. But before we go into consulting, I would first like to demarcate the difference between research and between consulting. That is important because jurisdictions around the world, academic jurisdictions, have different definitions for research and consulting for the purposes of the funding that tertiary or higher education institutions receive from government. So it's important to understand the difference between research and consulting. And I would like to do that in terms of 4 points. The first one is the starting point and purpose. The second one is the outcome. Third, the process, and finally, the results. So if we look at the purpose of academic research, obviously that's contribution to knowledge. You're going to find something new that's original, not self-evident or obvious. With Consulting, that's completely different, because as a consultant, you have a client, typically a commercial client in the industry or a government department or a not-for-profit organization or a membership organization, and you have to address a client-specific problem. So it's a problem-solving activity. You may go about the problem-solving process through scientific methods, but it need not be through scientific methods. The outcome for academic research is almost always uncertain, and we all know that, having embarked on research journeys. You never know whether you are going to meet your research objectives and find the right answers to your research questions. So there's a great degree of uncertainty. That is not the case with consulting. Why? Because consulting is contracted between you and your client, and your client holds you accountable to deliver to the contracted objectives. So there's a lot of certainty that you're going to deliver, otherwise you are not going to get paid. The process in both cases, research and consulting, is planned and budgeted, but in the case of consulting, it's more about that you meet the budgeted time frame and cost. So you've got to deliver on time and within the budget. That's of paramount importance, and we will see that this poses difficulties for academics quite often, because industry works at a faster pace than the academia does. A big difference is in the results, because in academic research, your results are published for benefit of the broader scientific community. Your results need to be reproducible by other researchers. So reproducibility and transparency is really important. And very often, if you develop a method, your method needs to be transferable across your specific discipline to other subjects and disciplines. That is different in consulting, because your client has paid for it. Your client owns the results. So the results are proprietary. They benefit the client, or if it's a not-for-profit or a membership organization, it also benefits for its purpose, its members, for example. However, there are ways that you can commercialize the results that you have done for your client, and that would then entail a split in the income between your client and between you. And I'm going to deliver strategies for that. But you can also very often use the consulting engagements that you have as a leverage point to identify areas of research that are relevant to practice. And so it's quite often a research subject finding mission to go onto a consulting project, although the consulting itself may not be research related, but it drives you towards research areas. So let's now look at the three different types of academic consulting. The first one is opportunistic, where you'd be looking at it mainly from an extra personal income stream point of view. These engagements are typically short-term. You leverage your own network, or you may get approached by industry or by government because of something you have published, and they think you might be able to help them. So they engage you very much as a subject matter expert. The second area is research-driven. That is where you engage in industry and become the trusted advisor. That means you have to work with them for an extended period of time. In some cases, there could be years without getting any consulting income. Instead, you earn your stripes at becoming a trusted advisor. And you learn through that what the key challenges are in the industry. You get access to your clients' internal research, and instead of know-how, you learn know-what. The know-what in knowledge man is referred to as knowing what is worth pursuing. So you embed yourself in the client organization. It becomes a mining mission for research projects. And I'll give you examples for that. The third area is the most long-term and complex area of consulting: commercialization. Who wouldn't like to see their invention or their research flourish and become commercialized into a product or a service or a technology? And when that occurs, we're talking about 20 years or longer of long-term income that is typically either spun off, the result of a spin-off of your university. So it's a like an entrepreneur type of spin-off that you are involved as a consultant to provide your tacit knowledge in relation to your research. That's the stuff that has not been published, the stuff that's in your head, the expertise that you have. So you would be an ongoing consultant into a spin-off or into third parties in the industry that have licensed your technology or your research. There's very little around from the academic domain about consulting. One of the articles that I find very useful, I've put here at the bottom, from Perkman and Walsh from the Journal of Research Policy from 2008. This is an article I can recommend. It's easy to read and it gives a really good overview of the different types of consulting. Look at the typical career path of an academic. You go to high school first, then you do some kind of university degree. Your first degree might be a diploma. Then you go on to do a bachelor's or a bachelor with honors, a master's. You do your PhD, your postdoc, you become a junior lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor, and professor. That looks pretty much the same in almost any country in the world. Now, my career path is more of a pracademic, not an academic. And it's a good illustration of what you might want to consider in developing at least opportunistic consulting opportunities. I certainly went to school. I learned how to write and how to add up numbers at high school. And when I went to do my master's in computer science, from the very first semester, I started to work in the industry, in a software and hardware company. First, in my first year, I worked half of the time, so 50% in the industry, and then it increased for the remainder of my studies to 90% of the time in the industry. What that enabled me to do is understand, for job security, what are the jobs from my practical experience that are really wanted in the industry, and what's that next wave of jobs that might be interesting and are very employable 4 or 5 years ahead. So it gave me that look ahead of what's going to be in demand. I could then shape my curriculum and my electives around that, and I could draw in my assignments and assessments on real industry projects that I could then use in my master's degree. My thesis at the end was commercialized and earned me a permanent resident visa in Australia under special skills migration. So after my master, then I went on for another 10 years in the industry, became senior general manager, business unit manager, and at the age of 40, I started to do my PhD while working full-time in the industry. Another 10 years later, so I am turning 61 years of age. So I've had like 3 10s. The first 10s in research and development, the second 10s in middle to senior management, and the last 10 as CEO and board director. And in that capacity, I started to get interested to give back to the community. So I took on an adjunct professor appointment and supervised professional doctoral students. And I loved it so much that after about 5 years, I decided that I want to be permanent in the academia, became a senior lecturer, and now I am an associate professor. So it's a pracademic type of career path. A very important first recommendation that I give you is that when you're looking at your PhD, this is really your best opportunity to focus on something that is relevant to an industry challenge or a policy challenge, or anything that's relevant to practitioners. Because if you focus on it in your PhD, you automatically become a subject matter expert and you become of interest, a person of interest to the practitioner community. It is very hard if you do something very abstract or if you do fundamental research in your PhD to later on change tack and engage in consulting in projects. Of course, I've done it at an earlier stage. Even during my master's, it was commercialized and the product was sold in Australia and then took me to Australia. But typically, not every academic has the benefit of working in the industry in parallel to the master's degrees or bachelor degrees. But once you get to PhD level, you really should stick your feelers out in the industry. Now, leading into our first of the 3 different types of consulting engagement, the opportunistic consulting engagement. I need to explain to you what did I focus on in my PhD, because that explains then how opportunities came to me even unsolicitedly. So I got approached via emails by new clients. I was running a big division of a transnational organization in Asia Pacific, and we developed infrastructure projects, multi-million-dollar infrastructure projects. The projects were awarded through a process of competitive bidding, which is also known as tendering. And these projects were big. So you could have a project that would cost you $400 million, and you then have to think about, how am I going to price it? Am I going to add $100 million to my $400 million and price it at $500 million? The problem is, if you price it too high, you're probably going to get undercut by a lower price and you're going to lose your bid. If you price too low, you're not making enough profit, or if there is a cost overrun, you might even make a loss. So for decades, it has been a problem how to price a bid in a tender situation. And as a practitioner, I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if I could forecast my competitive bid price, so that, a real situation that I came across was that with the $400 million bid, I know a client who priced it at $500 million. And then they were so happy that they won it and found out later that the next lowest bid was $600 million. Think about it. They could have bid another $100 million almost higher. They could have priced it higher by almost another $100 million, and they would have still won the bid because they would have still been the lowest bid. And these extra $100 million go straight to the bottom line. That's typically called money left on the table, or in pricing science, they call it the spread, the difference between the lowest bid and the second lowest bid. So what you really want is, by forecasting your competitors' bid prices, you want to be able to just undercut them slightly and not leave that money on the table. I used data science in my PhD to develop such a predictive model here. This is a real example from the information and communications technology industry, ICT. And here is the formula that was developed. There's obviously a lot of science behind it. You can use mathematical modeling, which is based on maximum likelihood estimation and a lot of statistics, or you can use various ways of artificial intelligence. But here is a formula, and it predicts you the lowest price of your competitors. And there are 2 variables in it. One of them is the size of the project, which is typically a measure of the scale of your project. So if you're in the shipping industry, typically it would be the weight of your ship. If you're in IT outsourcing, it would be the number of desktops that you outsource with your IP telephones, your laptops, with your printers, with your mobile phones. If you're in construction bidding, then it would be the cost estimate of your contract. That would be the measure of size. If you're here, and if you look at the denominator, bidders is the number of bidders that are competing for that contract that you're bidding on. The higher the number of bidders, the greater the intensity of competition and the greater the price pressure. So we published about this particular case and simulated the benefits. What if we had used this model for our past bids? What would have been the outcome? Our win rate would have been quadrupled, so we would have won 4 times the number of bids. Our sales would have gone up by 75%. our dollar margin by 85%, and the spread, of course, would have been minimized to less than 2%. And if you minimize that spread, the distance to your most competitive bid, that's, of course, how you increase your dollar margin. We then started to use this model on an ongoing basis, and we continued to have a very high win rate and a very high margin. So one day, on several occasions, the telephone rang, and I had various clients who wanted me to do individual consulting projects. So these are opportunistic consulting projects. What are the strategies? Well, obviously, you've got to align your research to challenges from the real world. I think I've been talking about this before I did it in my doctorate. If you haven't done it in your master's, bachelor's, or doctorate, then I strongly suggest that you start looking at industry problems and start doing publishable research in those areas. The important thing is that research is very consulting is very time consuming, because industry moves at a much faster pace than the academia does. So they want you right here and right there. So you've got to manage expectations with your industry clients, but also internally, because as an academic, you have to manage a balance between teaching, research, your other academic responsibilities, and now consulting. And typically, most universities only allow up to 20% of your time to be externally focused. So make sure you address concerns about time, remuneration. Do you want to bill your clients directly, or do you want to bill your clients through the universities and share the income that you have from your consulting with the university? I prefer to do the latter, because the university has legal departments, they have contracts, especially if you do international consulting. You have a lot of infrastructure that makes life so much more easier. But also think about academic merit, because not all universities reward consulting engagement equally. There are still a lot of universities that place a disproportionately high focus on research. So make sure in your institution that you understand what the promotion criteria are and whether consulting takes you further up that promotion ladder. But now look at research-driven consulting. There is an Australian organisation, a software as a service startup in the competitive bidding field. That's the field that I did my doctorate in, and the example I gave you earlier on come from that field as well. They do fully automated workflow. Basically, it's a decision support system available in the cloud that enables a bidder's entire workflow for a bid manager to put the tenders together, engage various partners, has project management and decision support available to you. They contacted me because they read one of my publications, and they asked me to be engaged on an opportunistic basis. It very quickly turns out that what I could offer them wasn't suitable. But in the discovery process of what it is that they wanted to do long-term as a startup organization, it became very clear that I could help them with artificial intelligence, including generative AI, mergers and acquisitions, including capital raising, the lean startup, how to develop prototypes, what should your minimum viable product look like with a viable feature set, but without spending too much cost on developing it, product roadmaps, and grants. And on the grants, of course, if you pursue government grants together with an industry organization, my university, Torrens University Australia, would then become the research partner of that organization, and that's when financial benefits would flow through to us. So far, after 2 years of engagement, I have not seen a single dollar. You have to embed yourself in the organization, earn your trusted advisor status. So until money will come in from this engagement, however, viewing it as a research-driven consulting strategy, I should say, This is the Chief Executive Officer, Nairi McKenzie. It's actually a video that you can play. In the interest of time, I won't play it now, but if the slides get distributed, you can play it. Important thing here is that from my engagement with BitHive, I've been able to publish. This is a paper that's just going into print. So in the next 4 weeks, it'll be printed and it'll be available as open access, so anyone can read it. So I've published on the adoption of pricing models in sales management practice. And I've done this with Professor Cobo Martin, who is an absolute world leader in science mapping in Spain. So a publication came out, a practitioner-oriented publication came out of my engagement. So far, no dollars, but this is the reason of that second type, why you're pursuing that second type of consulting, the research-driven consulting. It becomes a project mining exercise to identify new projects, research projects, and the more practitioner-relevant research projects you publish, it becomes a snowball. Then the more interest comes towards you. In the interest of time, I won't go over this, but here's another example where I've provided BitHive with commercialization consulting on their diagnostic analytics dashboard that helps you to do a health check on the major driver in the projects that you win, in the major drivers that you lose. So what are the strategies that you want to employ for research-driven consulting? Well, first of all, again, you've got to maintain relationships with companies that are aligned to your research. So it's really important that you are with companies that are totally aligned with your core expertise. And by giving you insights into their own research and into what the state-of-the-art technologies are and issues that they are facing with their own commercialization, you have your finger on the pulse. You may have done your PhD 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but you have the finger of the pulse of what's going on in the market and what the next wave in the market's going to be by embedding yourself into those organizations. But you also got to present at industry conferences, as well as publishing in the trade press. So not just research journals. Remember, you have an additional target audience. It's not just the scientific research community, it's the practitioner community. And it also means that you might want to join relevant professional associations. And very importantly, you have to engage in networking. I understand that Dr. Anand has organized a previous workshop on networking. I saw a small part of it. Very, very useful workshop that was, it's not just, you don't just have to go to the party. You have to dance. Don't just go to the party. You have to dance. You have to network. So when you join professional organizations, you have to attend their functions and engage in their networking. So it's just 2 more slides. The third and most complex type of consulting is commercialization. It's a very special skill set, which is an entrepreneurial skill set. And this is one where financial services and banking will have a particular interest because they will be involved in typical commercialization consulting. We have Professor Kimji Vagiani at our university. He is the father of commercialization. He configures the entire ecosystem, customer-facing, developing commercialization opportunities, and then configuring internal resources to deliver on those commercialization opportunities. He's also written a book which is available on Kindle, The Spiritual Journey of an Entrepreneur. He's a very successful entrepreneur. Now I'm going to step you through 3 of those commercialization projects that were headed up by Professor Kimji. The first one I know is of interest to everybody. We worked for a state government client who was concerned about the very high divorce rates in Australia. And they went to a third party and gave them a data set of 10 years and said, develop us a predictive machine learning model that predicts which couples are likely going to get divorced and which couples are going to be saved. They then came to Professor Kimji, to our university, and they asked us to validate the model, improve the transparency of it and explainability, and guide the next development, the next feature set or commercialization of the model. We used Professor Ali Mirjalili from our AI Research Center. Professor Ali is one of the world's most well-known researchers in artificial intelligence. The Web of Science has put him into the top 1% of highest cited authors, and he is one of the resources that was available to us. Now, completely unrelated to the purpose of tonight's talk, but I know because it is such an area of interest with divorces, what are the major predictors? Well, they vary from culture to culture and region to region. But in Australia, there are 4. The first one is having children late in your relationship. And then there are differences in age, education, and income level. And the bigger these differences are, the higher the probability of divorce. The second commercialization was in preventative paid management for a not-for-profit client. The idea was to determine when pain will strike from certain medical or mental preconditions, but also demographics. So in some way, characteristics like for the divorce model on demographics, but also job type and what other medical preconditions are there. This time we did not use Professor Ali Mirjalili. This time Professor Kimji engaged our students from our own university to develop a visualization tool and demonstrate as a prototype what are the key predictors of pain. And the client loved it, and we're now looking to commercialize this model for health funds to minimize insurance claims for injuries, but also for the construction industry in preventing final injuries. The third commercialization project, we've done many, this is just a sample, is another state government department, $30 billion of annual spend, and they struggled with the problem of duplicate invoices. You could call it fraud, you could call it suppliers gaming the system by sending more than one invoice for the same product or service to different agencies in the government. So the government naively, or each of the agencies naively paid each of the invoices, but that of course caused a major blowout in procurement costs, estimated at more than $10 million at a very minimum. So we developed a classifier model to classify every invoice. And as you can imagine, being a state government, that is a large data set to classify every invoice and eliminate the duplicates. And the project was so successful that it got commercialized across all of the agencies and other government departments in that state. Finally, my last slide before we go to Q&A, what are the strategies for commercialization consulting? Well, first, this is probably the most attractive one for various reasons. First, it for a researcher, you would love to see your PhD flourish or your invention flourish and be commercialized and have big impact in the industry or in health or in the arts or humanities or whichever discipline you are in. But it's also the most complex one. First of all, you have to think about how do you protect your intellectual properties? And patents are just one way of doing it. Another way, if you are, if you are in design, for example, or if you've written something like a book, there's copyright. There are also trademarks and other ways to protect intellectual property, but there are also trade secrets. So when I was the CEO of ICE TV, and we developed with machine learning a model that detects television advertisements and automatically skips them on your video recorder, we did not patent it. Why did we not patent it? We rather kept it a trade secret, because once you have a patent, it's documented, it's out in the open, everybody can read on it and then copy it. And there are regions in the world that don't care that much about the law and intellectual property protection. And we didn't want to put it right in front of them in the form of a patent. So we kept it as a trade secret. Finally, and lastly, at your university, you will have plenty of resources that you can leverage for commercialization. Sometimes these offices are called research office, or there's your legal team that you can go to. At our university, it is Professor Kimji Vagiani that we can go to, and he configures the whole commercialization process. But you will also have industry partners that have commercialization capability, or you can engage entrepreneurs who have been through the commercialization process, through the startup that they have been managing. And that is it for me. And I thank you for your attention. I'm sorry I did warn you. Lots of vast words and a lot of things I had to go through, but I hope you find it of value.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Heinz, for this enlightening presentation and informative session. Indeed, it's a very exciting topic. I just have received some questions. I will try to combine some questions even. So we're going to cover a different aspect of it. One of the questions have been raised here, Dr. Heinz. Do you think that ChatGPT and generative AI models and other technologies can take the role of the professor and consultants in the coming future? Let me connect this question with another question.
I love that question. I love that question. So don't drop
great.
it.
Yeah, but Doctor, I'm going just to connect it with another question also. Within these merging technologies in the future, what are the key factors could contribute to have successful consultancy engagement?
Okay, so if we talk about to connect those two questions, thank Dr. Yusuf Mohammed. It's very. It's about the future of work, right? That question reoccurs,
exactly.
Whichever area of artificial intelligence you're thinking about. So the context within which the question is asked is the future of work of consultants, right? So so I specialize in responsible artificial intelligence, and did give a keynote at a United Nations conference last year about that very area. So I'm trying to be brief because this is a 2-hour session, right? Generative AI or in any form of artificial intelligence is very useful if we understand its limitations. And that means as a consultant or as a researcher, but it is also as a client. So if I take it from a client perspective, I need to be aware of the limitations of AI, whichever form. And if I choose to rely on AI rather than a consultant, then I ought to educate myself very well about how reliable and trustworthy that advice is. I think we're a very, very long time away from consultants being replaced with artificial intelligence. That would go about as far away as artificial general intelligence. The opinions are this far apart about how long it will be until we will have artificial general intelligence. I am a lot more pessimistic about that than others. So that was the client side. On the consultant side, by all means, use whichever type of generative AI you have to do your consulting related research, because it's a very effective way to pull information together. You must remember also that your client pays you. And if you can do something for $1,000 instead of $10,000 because you're leveraging the modern efficiency of digitalization, and really artificial intelligence is just one of those tools, then you should be using it. But don't use it as a consultant if you don't understand the limitations of artificial intelligence, because otherwise you give biased advice, you give unfair advice, unethical advice, or simply the wrong advice. Or, as we all know, in business, the opportunity cost, which we call a type 2 error in science, far more outweighs a type 1 error or making a mistake. The typical entrepreneurial mindset is, you cannot forgive yourself for having not tried something. And then you thought it wouldn't work, and then someone else did it, and they became the next Elon Musk, right? Or the next Sam Altman. So this is a type 2 error. This is an opportunity cost, and entrepreneurs are horrified of type 2 errors. The problem with AI is that there is a huge risk for type 2 errors and increase in opportunity cost. And because consulting is all about industry and creating value, that is a substantial risk which is not manageable at the moment.
True, Doctor. And within this context, Doctor, the question regarding what are the factors or success factors need to be considered in such an environment, and measure how effectiveness is going to be the consultancy in this emerging technology in the environment.
Well, the success factors depend on which of the 3 types of consulting engagement you pursue. So if you look at the first one, opportunistic one, you're more engaged as a subject matter expert. So you probably don't need to be that strong on the soft skills. You probably, you could be a person who never was married, never had a life, never did any sports. Someone who's comes out of university, has done a PhD, never had any children, a geek basically, and then be involved in just one particular subject. In opportunistic consulting, that might be perfectly fine because you get approached, then now you give good advice. But if you then pursue the more longer-term strategy of research-driven consulting, where you have to embed yourself into a client organization, become the trusted advisor, you have to have soft skills. Soft skills are really important, and you have to cut your teeth with soft skills. Quite often in industry, many academics who have to develop their soft skills, they do it later on as they become a more senior academic and have internal leadership and management roles at their college or university.
Thank you very much, Dr. Heinz. I'm sure that this insight will add to the audience lots of the perspective from the different perspective, and this is very interesting topic. It can take hours indeed. But we also have another exciting session waiting for us. Thank you very much, Dr. Heinz, for your input and for the reception. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like now to take the opportunities to move to the second session titled Empower Learners, Strategies for the Student-Centered Teaching and Learning by Professor Andrew. Let me first of all introduce the professor, or Dr. Andrew. Dr. Andrew holds the position of the Vice President International and he is a professor of marketing at the University Applied Sciences Upper Austria. As the Vice President International, he is responsible for the development, implementation of the internationalization strategy, as well as for the development of the new international study program at the university's schools. Also, he is in a charge of building and managing programs, relationships with the partners university, international network, international student recruiting department, as well as international offices. His area of teaching comprise business-to-business marketing, marketing strategy, marketing research, cross-sectional marketing, and global business. In his research, he works on organizational buying behavior, business-to-business marketing, employer, and business negotiation. So in his second stream of the research, he is involved in the international higher education research with respect to the higher education internalizations, university-industry relationship. With no further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Androy to run the session. Professor Androy, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Again, the question which we are used so much to since a couple of years, can everybody hear me and see me?
It's very clear, Doctor, yes.
That is a big difference to previous years where I went into the classroom and I did not have to ask any kind of these questions. Thank you very much for having me. I'm sharing my slides with you. And I repeat the question. Can you see those slides?
Yes, Doctor, it's very clear.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I feel honored to be invited to this prestigious research workshop. Professor Heinz, very excited about what you said, because that is very much in line with what I perceive about the relationship between consulting, research, and teaching at the university. Pre-academics, I never heard this term, but I appreciate a lot, and I will take it into my vocabulary. Let me see. Yes, we can. Okay. So my university is located in Austria, and we are a university of an applied type. That means our aim is to bridge the knowing-doing gap for our students, meaning that we give them knowledge and we equip them with the skills that they need to be successful in their later businesses. We have about 6,000 students, and we are proud of that, almost 99% employment rate in most of our programs. And that is because, that might lead me towards my topic, we are doing our best to empower our students with the capacities and capabilities that they need to be successful in their later careers. We have 4 schools. The one that I am working in mostly is the Steyr School of Business and Management, and that is also the school where our controlling financial management and accounting department and research group is located. That would be the one that fits best to your type of university. If we talk about empowering learners, and that was my subject, I guess we should first define what is empowerment. And since the 90s, the term of empowerment has been described in the empowerment theory, and there are many definitions, and I like that one by Naidu in 2015, by saying that the theory of empowerment creates a framework for the transformation of human behavior. That's very important, and that can be through education, and that provides capacities that support people. Very important. We try to support people in helping to grow a society. It should allow individuals to build expertise, confidence, and to create new opportunities for action. That should be the guiding framework for discussing empowerment of learners. What does that mean now? If we want to empower our learners, our students, we should aim to foster their autonomy and also their relationships. We should help them to enable them to take control of their education. We should encourage active participation, critical thinking, decision-making, and endow them to shape their learning experiences. And finally, we should equip the learners with the skills and the confidence that are needed for academic and personal success. And the methods are at hand: student-centered teaching methods, collaborative environments, and I will talk about that a little bit later. Why is it important for us as universities to empower our learners, our students? Very egoistically, students who feel empowered, they generate more favorable word of mouth. And word of mouth is one of the strongest drivers for applicants' decision-making when they have to decide whether to go to university A, B, or C. But also from an internal perspective, contented, empowered students contribute to a harmonious environment and fewer disruptions. Isn't that what we all wish to have? Less disruptions, a harmonious environment, an atmosphere that gives our students and the teachers at the same time the possibility to do their very best. Aligned with that, we know that positively inclined and empowered students enhance the teaching process and also faculty satisfaction, which could be another goal for a university, because happy and satisfied faculty members lure in additional faculty members. They create the desire to work at this university. We have fewer turnover rates. We have fewer issues with people changing their career, being ill, leaving early. And finally, from the job market perspective, empowered students demonstrate heightened initiative and attract greater expectations by the employers that they also can fulfill. So their employability is higher, hence the universities trust us more. And then, as Professor Heinz so elegantly said, they will ask us for advice much more intensively than previously. What I present you now are partly findings of a study that a colleague of mine have conducted at two different universities. It has been published at the ICFET conference in 2022 and can be found easily in the respective databases. So what we did is we asked around 70 students to, in an essay, provide us with what was the pain of their first year of studies. What were their wishes? What were their unconfirmed expectations? And what would they advise us to do? The findings show very clearly, and this goes towards empowerment. The students want to have an honest pre-purchase communication. We should not over-advertise and underperform. We should advertise our programs with realistic expectations. This is probably the most important task, and that has been mentioned numerous times. Of course, we should use up-to-date media that are reflected towards the students, and that has changed through generations Alpha and Z. And we should not keep them in the gray during the application process, but provide them with as much information as possible at different channels. To do so, my university has established a CRM system based on Microsoft Dynamics that is only dedicated to the thousands of applicants that we have. So to nurture them on during their journey from a lead to a student who starts with the information that they need. Secondly, the students mentioned fast and continuous feedback. That means the university should create a feedback tool, not only in regards to the courses, because we have that, but also in regard to the application process. Why have they been accepted? Why did we not accept them? Why did we put them on a waiting list? That all gives the students the feeling that they play an important role. It empowers them and gives them the feeling they are important to us. Relationships and positivity. The students demanded for being connected to successful students of previous years to graduates, to testimonials, to show what they can achieve. Remember, in the first 2 years, our students are not yet empowered, but they are in an empowerment phase. So they need to know what expects them, what can they achieve if they work hard. And that goes hand in hand with positive confirmation and success stories. Share stories of a living proof of successful graduates with them. Link your channels to information about the program, include rankings, certifications, competitions, articles provided by the faculty members and researchers. That creates trust and gives them the feeling that they are at the right place. Third, creating a stimulating environment. And that means, of course, that is an investment question, but that means providing them with a place that they love, that they can gladly work in, that they love to go, because we know from studies that the place and the atmosphere where the learning takes place matters a lot in empowerment. And now we come more directly into the learning outcomes of the students, and I will share some examples on that with you. What we are trying is we try to encourage our students' voice and choice. So we provide them with numerous examples to express their opinions, interests, and preferences in the classroom. We let them decide about parts of the content, about the order of the content. We let them decide about the pace of learning. We let them decide which topics they want to deepen. We give them offerings of different case studies and let them make the decision of which one they want to work with. We let them decide for group partners, form their groups. We are not in high school anymore. We do not say A, B, and C work together. We want to foster a growth mindset in class. So what we did, for instance, we completely, in most of our courses, we completely stopped. And that is something that happens very often in business schools with competitive pitches. So, competitive group presentations where there is a #1 group, a winner, a #2, a #3, and unfortunately a #4 group. We don't do that because we have the feeling that for this generation of students, this is rather discouraging than encouraging. Rather, we let them present their findings and we pick the best from each group and combine that to maybe a 5th and then perfect result. We create a collaborative, supportive environment. We encourage them with cooperative problem solving. We send them out, let them fail, and allow them to support and encourage each other. This is very important to us. Second but last one, we involve the stakeholders more and more. And that means that program directors, senior professors, top researchers should not be very far from the students. We try to motivate the faculty and the researchers to get closer to the students. Let them allow to talk to the directors. We stopped having those, consulting hours on Tuesday from 1 to 3. That does not work with all professors. That does not work with all the top researchers. But increasingly, in an organizational development process, we try to help those colleagues to be more open. And we have numerous possibilities now. What we are doing now is a Teams call that is mostly independent of time, that is mostly independent of location, but it allows the student to be close to the professor. The professor, the lecturer, the faculty member is the first contact to the student. So what we should do is, and I have a proposal on that later, we should help them to be, better medical doctors with good bedside manners for the students. Not everybody knows that from the very beginning. Empathy is a trait. You have it in a certain level. But the competence to be empathic, the competence to listen, to understand, and to provide answers, that is a skill, and that can be learned. So we more and more lure our faculty members into a more interactive engagement with the students, because it's also to their benefit. Yeah, and lastly, what a university of my type, we are very much towards providing graduates that are able to fulfill decent managerial jobs in business. So we have to focus on the long-term skill development. And we know that managers, especially in the financial management area, but also in others, they need to have certain skills that only we can train them, because later they are in the cold waters, as we call it in Europe. The university, they are in a lab. So we can help them to understand what means independence, what means self-regulation, what means lifelong learning. And as such, we prepare the students for success beyond the classroom. What we are using a lot is what the World Economic Forum and the OECD permanently provides us with and reminds us. It's the 21st century skills for students that are composed of what we did earlier, and these are the foundational literacies. The second part of these 21st century skills is partly what my type of university has been established for, namely transferring knowledge to skills, increasing competencies, increasing those trainable skills that they need later. But where we still have to go a mile altogether is working on the character qualities of our students. And that is curiosity, initiative, persistence, adaptability, leadership, and social and cultural awareness. This is something which in times like these, with all the issues that we have, is gaining a lot of importance. And who, if not us, can help them to grow these qualities? And my very last slide is something that I recently found by a very nice colleague, Tanya Gupta, and she presented a LinkedIn article about the 21st century skills, not for students, but for educators. And this is something that we as universities could work on. And you see it's the same structure. It's a foundational, it's the competencies, and it's the character qualities. In the foundational knowledge parts, we are very good. We have the subject expertise, we have the teaching literacy, we have the oratory skills, and we have the mentorship skills at hand. Teaching impactfully, namely being able to tell stories, to give and take respect, to be aware of individual issues of our students, to be insightful, to be innovative in what we are doing, to be collaborative. These might be things that our faculty members, and I perfectly include myself here, should try to get better in. And the third one of these 21st century skills for educators refers to the character qualities of professors, of lecturers, of faculty members. And among those are adaptability. Am I able to quickly change my subject or my way of teaching if there is an instance that forces me to do that? Am I patient and empathic enough? Am I thoughtful? Do I understand the issues of my students? Am I approachable? Can they dare to connect to me? Yeah? Do they have to be very brave to send me an email, or can they just send me an email? Do I have the compassion to teach? What about the level of my motivation, but also discipline? And am I kind enough to execute this very much people-related job of a faculty member, with the goal to empower our students and at the end to make them better than we are now? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Andrew, for your very informative presentation on strategies for students-centered teaching and learning. I would like to now sort that there are a number of the questions on this regard, but let me try to combine some questions in which we can find some common area that might be connected over. Within the context, there is a question within the context of the 21st century skills, where the source of the information is available in everywhere. In your experience, Doctor, what are the key challenges educators face once they are going to implement a student-centered approach? I will try to connect this question with another question in which someone is asking, can you have any successful experience that has been applied at the personal level under your universities, in where there is showing that yes, a student-centered approach have been add and or solve an issue that will have connected with a very grateful impact later on.
Yeah, so when I'm telling you the findings of the survey that we did, that was not, we did not do this survey because we know already everything. We did this survey exactly because we were curious and we were in doubt whether our university is already student-centered and whether we are already good enough in empowering our students. So the first thing to figure out whether we are a university is already on the way to get empowered students and empowered learners is to ask this question. Because if we don't ask the question, we will not get an answer, and then we will be happy and do not change anything. After we have the result, and after we know that there is something that can be done to improve, then comes the organizational change process. And that is very hard, because actually to do what I have suggested to do, we do not have to change the learners. We have to change ourselves. And there are a couple of ways. The one is, you know, the teaching is a service. And service has 4 main issues, of which 2 are the inseparability. So you cannot separate the person who does the teaching from the teaching itself. And the second one is the variability, which means that not every person at every time, in every situation, behaves similarly. That is completely different with selling products. So what we have to do, and we are working on that, we have to work on the problem of inseparability and variability. Variability can be improved by processes. So we can explain to our faculty member what possibly works. We are doing a lot of job shadowing. So there was a hard process. We allow professors to sit in their colleagues' classes, to take their notes, and later to give them structured, positive, and valuing feedback on that. That was very hard because faculty members are individualists. So we have to create this atmosphere of trust, and then we can establish processes and give them a menu of different tools that they might use and try out. That's the one thing that we are doing. And at the end of this process, we should again ask our students for advice. And we learned a lot from the very concrete advice of the students that they gave us. And this is nothing that is, beyond the stars. So they do not want to be their own teachers, and they do not want to be our bosses or our clients. They are very modest, but they know very well what is the pain. And we should just listen to them. So this is the way that we are working on it.
Yeah, Doctor. I can see that there are a number of the questions are asking within the context to what extent the AI technologies now is supporting the implementation of a student center, or does it make it more challenges in order to be conducted? What is your view in this context, Dr. Andrews?
Yeah, interestingly, everybody talks about AI. I just submitted a paper for review to the Journal of Intelligence about the relationship of AI and EI, namely emotional intelligence. And that was a review. And what I learned in this review over the last 5 years, 2018 to 2023, is that at least from the perspective of empathy, of personal interaction, we do not yet have to be very afraid of artificial intelligence. But of course, we know that AI facilitates collecting knowledge, managing knowledge, and disseminating knowledge, but at the same time, it also normalizes the knowledge to a certain extent. So what we are telling our students, of course, use those tools in your studying, but take care. Everybody else uses it as well. And your purpose and your goal is to stand out. And the best students then will understand that AI provides them with the basics, and that takes a lot of burden of time-wise from them. But in order to stand out, they have to do something on their own. And the same holds for teachers. AI is capable of making a wonderful B2B marketing fundamentals class for me, with all the slides, the lecture notes, wonderful examples, better ones that I could find, YouTube videos and whatever. But that does not make me outstanding as a teacher. And that does not really empower the students who want to learn from an individual person. So I guess this combination of letting the basis be done by the tools, but always having in mind teachers and students alike stand out in a certain way. That empowers you, because that gives you the feedback that you are able to do something on your own, which is appreciated and recognized. So in that sense, I'm not very discouraged about the influx of AI in academic discussions and also in teaching.
Exactly, Doctor. It's eventually is a tool that can be used in a positive manner. There is one last question. I'm going to take it. It's somehow going to be even maybe connected to this context. How we can deal with the different abilities of the students within the approach of the center learning, teaching and learning.
Mm-hmm. With different abilities, you mean different levels or different prior knowledge? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, within.
Okay. This is a very important question. A good class with students who are waiting to be empowered has to be homogeneous but heterogeneous at the same time. And that normally does not work, because if all the students are at the same level, there will be no motivation to find somebody whom we can lead on, right? So then the class is normalized. However, if the class is too heterogeneous, either the talented ones or sorry, this is impolite now, but the less, the ones with the less prior knowledge, to put it in that words, one of these two groups then might be demotivated. So being too homogeneous normalizes, being too heterogeneous makes it very troublesome. And I believe that the core lies in the application process. My university does handpick their students, and our process is based on, of course, the grades, the GPAs, the GRE tests, at least at the IT school and at the School of Engineering, the language skills, but also on a face-to-face interview with each individual student, where we try to find a group that matches, but at the same time is not too homogeneous. And that's one of the criteria along which we compose a group. This is like when a company sets up a sales team or a lab team or an accounting team. It is partly in our hands. Of course, we cannot look into the brains of our students, and if they pretend, if they present themselves in the best light, that's clear. Yeah? But at least with this multidimensional approach, we see a cohort. And the special thing about our university is that this cohort goes through the whole curriculum together. So we do not have any majors. They do not pick courses as they wish. It's one group from the first semester until their graduation. So this group has to be carefully selected. So it all lies in a careful application and selection process. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Andreas. And yes, true that
Dr.
heterogeneity of the. Yes.
Dr. Yusuf, can I ask one question to the speaker?
Of course.
All right, go.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So, Professor, I have one question for both, sorry. The first, Professor Andreas, I just wanted to ask you, student learning, in the approach of student learning centered strategy, so how can we balance autonomy granted to the students in a student-centered learning environment? This is from the point of view of the structure as well as guidance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so of course, each academic program and the smaller units, the lectures, they do have to have clear learning outcomes that are well phrased, and this is a condition that cannot be discussed, because this is the contract between the learners and the teachers. This is actually the product manifestation. This is the tangibility of the product. So that cannot be discussed. What we can discuss is the way how we present this content. When I say that students can choose from different case studies in my very classes, that does not mean that they can choose from a marketing, a finance, a logistics, and an operations management case study if they are in a marketing class. But they can choose from different approaches coping with the same theme. So it is not to be discussed what is in the learning outcomes and what is the key content of the course. The how is something that can vary.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Yeah. So I think your topic is very interesting for all of us because we are all into teaching and learning. So I have one more small question, what strategy do you suggest for young teachers, I mean faculty members, to promote student collaboration and peer learning in the student-centered classroom?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I have a very easy answer. Another stream of my research goes into the behavioral patterns of the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha. And the answer to the question, what should a teacher to allow the students to engage, is simply let them do it because they want to do it. And then take into consideration maybe the character qualities of these 21st century skills for educators: patience, empathy, thoughtfulness, compassion, but also discipline and kindness. I guess we are all good in what we are doing, and the students are very good in being independent. So we just have to let them and still guide them. And this is a skill. This is something everybody can learn. And I'm still a learner. I'm far from being perfect in that. I perfectly admit. Yeah. And after each class, maybe this is a very small advice. After each class, I have a Word document where I write a little note on what went wrong, what was not so nice, what were my problems, perhaps not that much their problems, but mine. And from that, I try to learn.
Thank you.
Very pragmatic. Yeah. I'm a pragmatic.
Thank you. Professor
Thank you.
Heinz, thank you. Professor Heinz, I just have a last question for you. So your topic is actually taking the faculty member to a next level, because normally most of the university focus on teaching, learning, and to some extent research, and consultancy is another important area so that we can transfer our knowledge to the community. So in this context, I think what do you suggest? Like, for example, if a faculty member wanted to stay update with industry trends and best practices, so that he can deliver a good consultancy services. So now, what suggestion do you provide for young faculty members, how to keep them abreast with the industry trend as well as follow the best practices, so that their consultancy services will be relevant as well as effective?
A lot of that is personality dependent. So, there's a lot of crossover with what Dr. Andreas said just then. There's different learning styles, and but there also is consequently different engagement styles. So if you are an outgoing person, so if you're a networking person, then going to industry conferences and going to industry networking events is a great starting point. Spreading your, business cards are not as common anymore, but spreading your LinkedIn account around, hooking up with other people, then following up, making sure you have your elevator speech practiced. So you've got to be able in 10 seconds or ideally less, say what your key area of expertise is, but only listen to other people first. Don't tell everybody what you know, because people very quickly lose interest. So find out where other people face their major challenges, and if there is a alignment, then tell them. So if you're that outgoing person, I would suggest you join professional associations, go to networking events. I'm assuming you're talking about someone who hasn't got any industry connections, like somebody who starts with nothing. The alternative is if you are not an outgoing person, but because if you are very, very good, if you're a leading expert in your field, then just when you do your next publication, try to focus on something that by scanning trade journals. So if you're a practitioner in artificial intelligence, for example, the trade press is full of it, the general press is full of it. But say, for example, if you've specialized in human resources and you look at and you've specialized in artificial intelligence in human resources, then what you want to do, you want to make sure you look at what are the practical areas that are not already trodden to death. So are you going to write yet another research paper about bias in the recruitment process and the lack of fairness? No, because there's already 1,000 publications in high-ranking journals about it. Find out from conversations with real human resources managers, what is that next challenge? What is the thing that's coming up, but it's not already been trodden to death? And then focus on that, carve out your niche, catch that next wave. And when you then publish, you will not just get citations, but you will also have people that ring you up or send you an email and say, I would like to talk to you about it. And for that, because people come to you, you don't have to be I don't know, Shah Rukh Khan or whatever movie star, right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Thank you, Professor. Thank you very much. Yeah, Dr. Yusuf. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for our both esteemed speakers. I'm sure that this insight will add a lot of value to the audience from the different perspective either from the strategies on the consultancy or the strategies on the center learning approach. Before to conclude, I would like the audience to check the chat box where the feedback link is provided in your to get your valuable input for improving delivering such session in the future. And now I would like to invite Dr. Anand, Director of Postgraduate Studies, Research and Innovation Department at the College of the Banking and Financial Studies, to deliver his concluding remark. Dr. Anand, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you. So before, I just wanted to speak. So I remember one story of philosopher. So he used to tell that if I have an apple and if you have an apple, and if we both exchange each other, end of the day, each one will be having one apple. On the other hand, if I have an idea and if you have an idea, and if we both exchange each ideas, then end of the day, we both will be having two ideas. I think today's session is a wonderful session. I think we should, on behalf of the College of Banking and Financial Studies, I thank Professor Heinz as well as Professor Andreas for sharing your valuable time for our community initiative. So I think you have been shared so many ideas. End of the day, we have 75 plus people in the live session from around 16 different countries across the world. I think you have shared your knowledge through a forum of CBFS webinar for the benefit of the community. I think your knowledge will certainly be going to make a positive change, especially in the young researchers as well as faculty members. I think that will certainly, though the hour is just 1.5 hours, I think to get the idea, I think even fraction of second will be enough. I think you know that too. Newton has got that idea in a fraction of second. So then he discovered something different. So that's why in your though it looks 1.5 hours, I think most of the people, we can see the chat box comments also. I think the knowledge that you have shared is really tremendous, and it will definitely make a positive change in the many people who have joined here. And in this particular webinar, we have recorded this, and later on we will upload in CBFS YouTube link, and you can refer this for your future purpose. Like you may not remember everything, but later stage, go through this YouTube channel and you can get whatever the points shared by our today's speaker whenever you want. So I will share all this YouTube link to all the participants today. And that will, you can also share that because it's a knowledge sharing is a continuous process. You can also share it to anybody they want. So that's why we make our always our webinars open. We don't charge any fees for this, and this is basically for community initiative. And normally we will get a good, great professors like Heinz as well as Andreas, who are always ready to share their knowledge. This is a 10th series. Normally we will conduct 2 or 3 webinars in a year. And our next webinar will be in the next month. That's by the end of the next month, we will again conduct similar event that's called Meet the Editor. So in a year, we conduct in a sequence manner, meet the researcher and meet the professor and later meet the editor. So it's a complete circle. So I look forward to see you again in our Meet the Editor webinar, which will be held by the end of the next month. So with this, on behalf of the College of Banking and Financial Studies, I thank you all for joining this webinar and gaining the knowledge. And this is a continuous process, and we look forward again you in the next coming webinars. On behalf of the College of Banking and Financial Studies, we are highly, highly grateful to our today's speaker, who are the real stars. They have given real light to all our audience. Thank you, Professor Heinz, as well as Professor Andreas, for your time as well as useful, insightful talk. Thank you, one and all. As Dr. Yusuf said, please share your feedback given already in the link. And you have already registered, and you will be in our database, and we will continuously contacting you whenever we conduct such community initiative activities. Thank you, one and all. Have a great day, evening, night, whatever. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone. And that's conclude our today webinars. Thanks again to our guest speakers. Thanks for all the audience. We are looking forward to connecting with you in the future events. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you very much.